With all the talk and concern around Bulls Nation about the Chicago Bulls potentially not increasing their lottery odds enough to where they may fall out the top 10 or maybe even outside of the lottery, we're going to talk about why that may not be as bad as what some Bulls fans are thinking. We're going to do all that plus catch up on the mailbag and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it for today, y'all. I promise y'all we're going to do a follow-up episode due to the voicemail service that I use conked out on me, and a lot of you guys called in and re-left those voicemails, so we're going to get into those, but first, I want to talk about this, right? One thing, if you're on Bulls social media, I'm sure everybody has seen kind of the calamity that's going on around Bulls media in regards to what's happening with the tank, right? And I've talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm not going to get as in detail and in depth about, the Bulls only winning 5 games in 5 weeks and teams below them still losing games and the Bulls being stuck at 10th. But my brother Pat, the designer, and I over on Locked On Bulls, right? He brought up a topic on if the Bulls may mess around and make the playoffs, right? He also did that over on the Bulls Breeze as well. And so I want to have this conversation, right? And in most situations, and in no way, I want to be clear, in no way am I saying that you can get the same level as lottery talent in this year's draft as you can outside the lottery, right? I want to be clear there. The talent that's going to go in there is, of course, a higher caliber. But I will say this, and this is the conversation I want to have. The depth of the next 2 drafts, that's where you start getting into comparative to other drafts. You can still get a player that's going to go outside the lottery in this year's draft that would have been a lottery pick last year. Maybe even would have been a lottery pick the year before that, right? And that offers a unique situation. Now, let me be clear. Like I said, in no way am I trying to say, let's just stop. We're going to still get we're automatically going to get a great player. It all comes down to still scouting, right? When you look around the NBA, we get, and I know everybody goes to Jokic being a second round pick, but I'm not even going to go just to that. Like, if you draft well, right, you can still get a foundational piece. Maybe they don't turn into a superstar, but you can still get a foundational piece. Now, that's not going to do anything to calm the desires and the need in the modern league to have a star, right? But I do think with where the Bulls are, you can still get some considerable talent in this draft, even if somehow the Bulls wind up instead of 5 through 8, if they end up 10 through 15, right? And so when you look at some of the mocks, and the reason why I want to highlight this, and I know this isn't to slight anybody, right? Not everybody has time to watch a bunch of college basketball. Hell, people don't even have time to watch multiple NBA teams regularly, much less a whole different league in college. But I do want to highlight this, right? A guy like Asa Newell, who is projected to go anywhere between 12 and 15, if you kind of combine most mocks, that guy would have been easily a top 8 to 10 pick last year, right? I already talked about him heavily. A guy, for example, like Hugo Gonzalez, a guy that was initially mocked to go in the top 8 before the season started, who's now via some mocks has fallen towards kind of the mid-bottom of the first round, or again, right around the end of that lottery. Hugo Gonzalez is another player that has tremendous talent that could still end up being one of the best guards to come out of this draft. Jeremiah Fears, another guy slated to go outside the lottery as a point guard, though, but could have tremendous upside in the NBA level. Igor Denman, right? Another guy that I've talked about. Rasheer Fleming, another guy that a lot of you guys brought up. There's tremendous talent still in this draft. So, wow, I know it's not going to calm anybody, and it shouldn't, as far as the feelings of we need lottery picks, and I hope that the Bulls still do get a lottery pick, right? Right now, the Bulls still have the 8th worst record in the league. I'm not too worried about the Bulls coming out the play-in. I think the Bulls have had better teams that still couldn't make it out the play-in. I know this team is playing with a lot of heart right now, though, and we'll see they're still losing a lot of games. But I think that there needs to be a level of kind of awareness over in the talent in this draft comparative to other drafts in the way and what you can get even if you wind up 10 through 16, right? Let's just hope that the Bulls somehow don't get worse than that, right? It's still right there in most it's comparative to lottery picks in a lot of other drafts, right? And so and again, it's still playing with fire because you still got to make sure that you scout incredibly well. And like I said on today's earlier daily episode, nothing goes to fix the doubt around AK and his ability to recognize talent. That's a legitimate doubt that's there. That's going to always be there. You cannot take away from that, right? But like I said earlier, that really is going to be there no matter what level that you pick at, right? So I think as we go through this, and I think there's going to be plenty of time to analyze. There's going to be plenty of time to see where the Bulls sit at and what ends up happening. There's plenty of still talent left in this draft. Now, like I said, if the Bulls wind up between 8 and 10, Asa Newell's my guy. Talked about that on the episode the other day, and I still think that's where I'm sitting in. But Hugo Gonzalez, Jeremiah Fears, these guys like Rasheer Fleming, these are still guys that make a whole lot of sense for the Chicago Bears, where you can still get talent that you absolutely need. Hell, some mock drafts have Derek Queen going around that. Now, some have him moving up as well. I do think he's a player that's going to move up. Danny Wolf's is still a guy that's out there. So there are a lot of guys still with tremendous talent in this draft. And we just got to hope that the Bulls, no matter where they draft, wherever they are, they get the best guy left on the board wherever they draft. And that is where I'm more scared at than anything else, is the fact that if AK and Eversley can even identify that talent correctly. But we'll calm those fears when we get to it. Let's go ahead and catch up on the mailbag up here next. Let's get into this first one. This one's from the 779.
Yo, Hayes. I just calling to talk of Tre Jones. Watching him in Miami yesterday. Pretty good. Pretty happy with what I'm seeing. I didn't realize the Bulls had a better Ayo. That's what I'm seeing. He's doing everything that Ayo does, but maybe a little better, a little bit faster, a little bit better finishing. Different defense maybe, a little bit. I think Ayo's probably a little more stout, better maybe on the ball. And this dude is flying around covering ground like crazy. So I don't know. Tre Jones is part of the core as far as I'm concerned. You know, and I'm not saying anything bad about Ayo because I think there's plenty of room on a basketball court for what both of them are doing. So peace and love. Love the show. Keep it up. Keep up the great work. Go Bulls.
Tre Jones being a part of the core, unfortunately, we can't say that because he's not re-signed. Like there's still the most likely scenarios. Tre Jones is not going to be back in a Bulls uniform next year. I think that's the most likely scenario. Now, that the likelihood of that can change and ebb and flow via how active the Bulls are before free agency opens. But if Tre Jones keeps playing like this, he's going to be one of those free agents, maybe not in the first wave, but I can see him signing in the second wave of free agency. Now, I do think you're getting caught up in the moment to say he's right up there with Ayo Dosunmu. He's not nearly the defender that Ayo Dosunmu is. He's still a really good active defender, but he's not nearly like Ayo has shut down defensive ability. Tre Jones hasn't shown that, right? I also think that like Tre Jones is a better passer. He's a better point guard, and we've seen that. That's why Ayo doesn't really play point guard anymore. He's a 2 or a 3. But I do like what you said there. He can play. Tre Jones and Ayo Dosunmu can play together. And I would go so far as to say, if you have those guys being your guards and your wing coming off the bench, that's a pretty solid 1-2 punch coming off the bench. So, we'll see what the future does hold. I would love for the Bulls to find a way to keep Tre Jones. Like I said, as the more and more time goes on, the less likely that seems to be. We'll see what the future does hold. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Todd.
Hey, what up, man? It's Todd. Glad we got another opportunity to leave a VM because I was trying to, but I didn't get around to it. But look, as luck would have it, here we are. I'm calling because I wanted to talk about your comment today about playing free. That's what I saw last night with our team. They were playing free and unburdened, meaning we're not getting the 7th or 6th, pick, or at least the 7th or 6th in the tank, I should say. We're not getting that slot. We're not probably going to move down past 9. I would hope that we don't even get close to 10. But even if we do, and I said this last night in the post-game comments, even if we do, and if we make the playoffs by some God-forbidden stroke of luck, that is a good thing. We are now seeing our young players develop. Josh Giddey, Modest, Kobe, particularly, even JP and a couple of the other players. But I mean, the new players like Tre Jones and such, they're gelling. And if they gel to a point with which we make the playoffs, That's what we want. That's what we want. And there's great players, or I think good players that we should get and be looking at, like, to your point, Ace and Newell around a 15 or 16, or who I like, Rasheer Fleming, or a few others that we can still find that will move the dial for us down the road. A broken clock is right twice a day. And right now we are in our broken clock moment, y'all. Even with Acme doing all the incompetent shit that they do, we're still right now. They have stumbled into something that I don't even think they predicted they would. So what we need to be doing is rooting these players on. You know, obviously I was in the tank because I still want Common, Maluash, and I still hope we can get a top, at least 7 or 6 pick. But if we don't, that means that these players have developed. They are, that they have pushed us beyond what I think their capacity was initially. And we should be excited about that too. That's all I want to say. So I'm just seconding what you said last night and what you said earlier today. What are your thoughts? Talk soon.
Seeing young players develop is always great. And I don't understand people who complain about that or want to poo-poo or shit on that or whatever it is. Like, you want to see young players develop, and you want to see them do it the right way. The way that this team is playing with heart, the way that this team's playing with determination, I'm not going to bitch about this team no matter what happens, because they're playing with the way that I want. Here's the thing. The way that the Bulls are playing, I would trust that more, that Windsor would eventually come from that if you keep playing that way, keep developing together, and, of course, adding talent year over year, than what I would how the Bulls were playing at the beginning of this season, right? So that's just my thought process on it. But I think that, you're right, that there are definitely some players that still help outside the lottery, but you just need to make sure you hit on it. Your margin of error gets smaller and smaller as you go on, of course, right? So you got to trust those guys, but you still eventually need that star level talent. Now, that can eventually come outside the lottery if you hit on the right guy, right? And we just got to see what the future is going to hold for the Chicago Bulls there. We shall see. Can we overcome? We will see. All right, let's get into the next voicemail, man. This one's from Oscar.
Hey, what's up, Hayes? This is Oscar. I'm giving you a call, man. I love your show. And both Chicago Bears and Chicago Bulls Central. Big fan. Just another thing I just want to get out. I love the process of just being a fan. I love the Chicago Bulls ever since I saw Derrick Rose play against Kobe Bryant back in that Christmas day. Became a fan of them and those early Bulls teams. I just want to give out. It's a process. You got to be a fan. You got to be with the team, the highs and the lows, and I'll just let them play. Let the guys play out. There's no guarantee that draft pick, that whoever we pick is going to be our savior. So just let the guys develop. And this is the most fun I've seen them since I saw those early Lonzo, Vooch, and DeMar. That year they played together, that was the great year that I saw them play since I saw even Derrick Rose play. So I'm excited for this journey and whatever might come. Just let them play, have fun, enjoy it. All right, we'll appreciate it, and it's my first time. Thank you.
First off, Oscar, appreciate the call. And I'll say you're right. There are no guarantees in the draft. Drafting in the top 10 doesn't necessarily look at Patrick Williams. It doesn't guarantee anything, right? If I'm not mistaken, Denzel Valentine was a lottery pick. Am I mistaken? Can't remember. I try to forget the Denzel Valentine era because his gums still scare me. I'm just going to be 100% honest. Denzel Valentine's gums still to this day terrify me a little bit. And it's like being bitten by Denzel Valentine would have to be one of the first rings of hell. But no, he was a 14th overall pick. So we'll see what happens there. But I think overall, yes, there are no guarantees, right? You can find a star-level player in the 20s. You can find a star-level player in the top 5. You can find a bust in the top 5 while you find a star later in the draft, right? There are no guarantees in how any of this happens. You just got to figure out what's best for you. So I think that's what it comes to. We'll see what happens, right? Here's the thing. I also understand, though, the people that view this as you're decreasing your odds by not going out and getting the guys that you need, right? That by not having a lottery pick, you're decreasing your odds to find that star. And we got to see what the future does hold for the Bulls. Hopefully they can find it regardless. If not, we're in a dark place nonetheless. So we'll see where that future does hold. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today, man. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Hayes? How you doing, brother? Hope all is well. Your boy Big O, man, calling to chime in, man. The Bulls, as you know, have been playing hard lately. I know the last time I called, it was kind of like, just an organizational call about, where they headed and, things that they're not so efficient at. I guess it's probably another call, but more on the positive side. I am happy to see Josh Giddey kind of growing to his own. Putting up triple doubles again, damn near triple doubles. You see Kobe has picked it up, and they pulling out some really hard earned wins. And I'm happy to see that. You know what I'm saying? I am one of those people that want to see this team, be higher enough in the draft to go out and get some quality, above quality young kids and bring it here and start, turning this thing around as far as getting the next generation of talent. I am one of those people. And I'm also not going to be the guy that's going to sit up here and tell you I'm mad that they won the game. But if they, the guys that are here right now are out there earning hard wins, I'll never say that. That was a good video you made, by the way, by addressing that, to the fans, because, both can be true. So my thing is this. If this team not going to be bad enough to go up to get a Cooper Flag or some of the other top prospects in the draft, if the organization is not going to make, what I would say moves to, position themselves to get a higher pick in the draft by sitting Kobe or Josh Giddey here and there to prevent some of these wins from happening. If they're not going to do what the Dallas Mavericks did a year or two ago to get Derek Lively, right? They're not going to do that. Then they need to be better at trading and giving, generational talents in here. Well, not even just generational talent, just above average players in here. They got to be better in the trade market. You can't be in the middle, as we know. It's a terrible place to be. You have to be great at something. You know what I mean? In order to get this thing turned around. You can't be terrible at trades and terrible at drafting players. You have to be good at something. So that's the only thing. If you're going to go out here and let these guys run out here and get wins, then you have to be positioning yourself to go out and be better in the trade market and turning this thing around. Now, granted, you was able to get DeRozan, Vooch, and Lonzo in here. Didn't work. You know what I'm saying? But we see now by flipping them, you got some young guys in here that's turning this thing around, at least from a hard-working aspect. But can you be better at trading and getting the next?
Here's the thing. The difference is the Dallas Mavericks did that for one game. They weren't sitting players with 20 games left on the season. They looked at that one game, and that one game was going to determine whether they increased their draft pick or they decreased their draft pick, and they end up flipping that to get Derek Lively, right? So you're saying that the Bulls should look, if they're not going to look to sit Giddey and Kobe to lose, like that's not what the Dallas Mavericks did. They didn't do that. They did it in one game. Now, I would hope that if it came down for the last game of the season and the Bulls are like, hey, this one game is going to determine whether we are going to keep our pick or not, that they would make the right decision. But here it goes. We're going to keep our pick regardless, right? So that's a very different set of circumstances, and the Dallas Mavericks didn't do that with 20 and 18 games left, right? That's not what they did. So we'll see what the Bulls do decide, right? You got to hit. Eventually, you need a star. That's just the way that it works out. Eventually, you need a star level player. If you don't get that star level player, where are you sitting at with your franchise? And hopefully, like I said, you can get that anywhere in the draft, depending on how well you scout, and if you get lucky as well. Like, because there are some players that even the team that drafted him didn't necessarily like. When we drafted Jimmy, I don't think we thought that Jimmy would turn into what he turned into. We looked at the talent that he had and was like, this is a good player to bet on. And look at what Jimmy turned into over his career, right? So you need a little bit of luck too. We'll see what the future does hold for the Bulls, and let's hope that we start getting lucky. But guys, thank you for tuning in to this bonus episode. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.